Hey, Gage,
Yo, Brian.
what you thinking about?
I don't know. I guess LMT stuff.
No way. Look what I got.
dude,
Yeah,
no
LMT
way.
stuff,
That's
dude.
awesome.
Let's go. What are you doing, Gage?
I thought that's what we were doing.
It's a locked adjustment. You had to like deliberately unlock it and mess with my diopter.
You said that's what we were doing.
Whatever. Let's just go make the video.
Fine.
Hey, we're out here at the Sawmill Training Complex, and we got an exciting two-part series on the LMT MWS, the 308 16-inch piston version of the MWS. And this is going to be part 1 of 2. Today we're going to be looking at the MWS as an assaulter configuration, so we got some exciting footage for that. This is going to be the first series in a long series of many manufacturers, different AR10's to come. So keep around, keep tuned, keep here today, and hopefully you love what we got for you.
All right, so we just now finished firing roughly 200-ish rounds. The lens that this video is supposed to be viewed through is using an AR10, in this case is an LMT MWS, in the role of like an assaulter. Obviously you read that in the title of the video, however I decided to title that. But just kind of for the average gun owner, the average firearms owner, you know, how does an AR10, a large frame semi-auto gun stack up as like an assaulter or something similar along those lines of that style of rifle?
Yeah, so it probably comes as no surprise, but the biggest lesson that we learned is that your fundamentals matter a lot more. Shooting this, whether you're standing up, kneeling, prone, whatever it might be. We specifically included a couple like 4 to 10 round fast fire drills. Some of them where we actually like compromised our position a little bit, and we found that the gun is just like far less forgiving than an AR-15. So if that's something that you want to use this for, that needs to be like a deliberate part of your training. You should be pushing your limits on how fast you can shoot the gun, what positions you force yourself into or are forced into, stuff like that. But
yeah, I agree. Like I said, the fundamentals matter. They matter far more from the ground up. Everything from foot position all the way up to your knees, your hips, your shoulders, everything matters so much more. I'm sure y'all have heard it mentioned, at least on this channel, if not on this channel, then on Weapon Snatcher channel. Basically sloppy precision. So based on your target distance, target size, you can get a little bit sloppy with it, and that's the case most of the time with 5.56. You can get a little bit sloppy with it just because it doesn't recoil much. That is not the case with a large frame. There's no amount of slop that you can allow into your stance, your setup, your position, because it recoils so much more than the small frame calibers, that any sort of point of weakness, path of least resistance, is really going to be accented with the large frame calibers.
yeah, and kind of following from that point, we also found that like when you're doing transitions or when you're trying to shoot doubles or more on a single target, your vision, even if it's really good and it's pinned to the right spot on the target, my experience was that like that's not enough. Those fundamentals have to come in. Your body has to be a bigger part of driving the gun and putting it onto the target. And especially like if you're doing a wide transition between two targets, decelerating the gun into the A zone is like something you really, really need to be cognizant of. Because if you're not, you're just going to overshoot it because there's so much momentum on the gun.
Yeah, I think you could compare that depending on who you are. For me, basically the analogy I kept going to was like a big farm gate. That's what it felt like. It felt like I was trying to swing a big old like pasture farm gate and stop it on a dime, and it's just, if you go too fast, you're going to overshoot it every single time because there's so much weight out in front of you that you're trying to stop. So yeah, speed is definitely a factor when trying to push these big, heavy platforms. You can't quite go as fast. You got to slow down so that you can be a little bit more deliberate and ultimately be a little bit quicker on target.
Yeah, and then one thing that we were pleasantly surprised with was gassing was not an issue. We're actually firing this on the unsuppressed setting. Remember, if you saw our last video, like this is a higher flow can. This is the LMT AT, so it's the big brother to the K. But yeah, like gassing was great. It was really, really easy to tune or lack thereof, and it wasn't coming out the ejection port the way we expected. Undercover, I think I commented earlier that it was like kind of loud, but when we were like out on the flat range, it sounds like a suppressed gun. It's really pleasant. It doesn't feel overwhelming.
Yeah, I never did have any gas that I noticed, getting me in the eyes or the nose. Like even thinking back on it, I don't ever remember that being a problem at all.
And then, although we just harped on fundamentals and vision and how this thing kicks a lot more than AR-15, honestly, by the end of shooting today, managing recoil wasn't actually that bad if your fundamentals were locked in. When we had good stance, when we were lined up behind the gun, when your vision was doing what it's supposed to be doing, and you're an active participant in driving the gun onto target, managing recoil was pretty easy. Like we had a couple sets where we were doing doubles or triples or more, where like I definitely felt like I found my rhythm with it, and I was able to just hit A. But
yeah, and a lot of that I think is a little bit subjective to this setup. Obviously, you could throw a muzzle brake on it instead of suppressor. You're probably going to reduce some of that recoil. Whether you're running a heavier or lighter optic setup, that's going to cause the weight difference. So target transitions are going to change, that kind of stuff. Recoil is also going to change. But as far as this setup goes, yeah, as Brian said, we just now talked about fundamentals, but once those fundamentals got dialed in, it was kind of like this reminder, hey, you can't be sloppy with it. Once you kind of got used to it, it was absolutely manageable, but it does take more time and intentionality to keep that recoil manageable. Like I said, I just keep going back, you can't be as sloppy with a large frame as you can a small frame. As long as you've got everything locked in pretty good, you can run a large frame pretty doggone well.
Yeah, and like on kind of counteracting another point that I already said, while the momentum of the gun, because of its weight, it makes it harder to drive. When you're transitioning, the weight of the gun itself in dry fire, I felt like it was like super heavy doing slide lock reloads or bolt lock reloads and stuff like that, but I didn't feel super tired out by it. At least in a flat range setting, I recognize that if we were walking really far, I'd feel the weight of it. But given the fact that like we shoot some like heavy barreled ARs that are like 12, 13 pounds, that's the case for many modern guns with all your fun accessories.
Yeah, if you're coming from like an 11.5 with a mid-weight profile barrel and a red dot, this is going to feel like an absolute tank.
It's going to suck, especially when you have a zero compromise optic that's like 2 pounds on it. But last note I think that we found on here is you guys know that I really like American Defense lowers, so I have a lot of experience with their right side bolt release on an AR-15 platform. This is also an American Defense lower, like we've already gone over. The slide or the bolt release on this is like really, really tough. And additionally, like administrative reloads are really, really tough on the AR-10 platform in general. So, yeah. But that's pretty much like all of our like range notes, I suppose. Hey, what's up, everyone? It's Brian again, maybe like 5 agains. And today we have an LMT MWS in 308, and if you didn't notice from up here, it's a piston system MWS, which are a little bit rarer, not only because Americans seem to hate pistons more than they hate DI for various reasons, but I feel like they're also just harder to find. Currently, I think the only way that you can get MWS piston kits is as a bolt barrel assembly that you stick into an existing MWS. Don't quote me on that. It's just pretty much all I've seen on like Rooftop and V1 Tactical and D.Wilson Manufacturing and stuff. But we'll go from the rear to the front, same way that we always do when we go over these rifles, and I'll just kind of talk about the config we have. We're kind of dubbing this like the MWS Assaulter base config. We're gonna have a follow-up video to this where we go into a slightly different setup, but we'll talk about that when that video drops. So for the purposes of this video, we wanted something sleek and lightweight at the back, and so of course me and Gage love the Veltor stocks. So we went with an iMod, but it's the non-clubfoot version. This is a very old stock for me, but they're very lightweight, lighter than the other SOPMod stocks out there from D5 and LMT and stuff. Same cheek weld, you got battery storage, all that good stuff. So that's what we're running. You can't see it on this side, but I got duct tape over here. It's all beat up real bad. The lower on this is a complete ADM UIC 10 lower. I originally got an ADM UIC 10 and 6.5 Creedmoor. And so all we've put on this is an MWS upper. Complete lower is exactly how it comes from ADM. The only thing that I've changed in here is I have a Tubbs flat wire AR10 spring. I have a Trigger Tech Diamond, and for this video I have it tuned up closer to the 3-pound mark. And then I've got a Driven Arms Co. ULCG FS, which is short for full size, and it's in their new sawtooth grip. If you want a grip that grips back, has Gorilla Grip, that's the one to get. The sawtooth is a formidable texture, so good job on Driven Arms for that. This upper, it may look a little strange because it's not a factory config upper. It is the 15.3 MWS M-Lock upper, and I bought it from V1 Tactical. They sent it to D.Wilson Manufacturing. They cut out a shovel nose so that it can fit a piston system, and then they re-anodize it. So it looks like it's designed that way from the factory, but gives this MWS a little bit of a rarer look. You know, if we're attaching flashlights, or if we're doing clip-ons up here so we have to side mount a lamb, getting that further out could be nicer depending on how you want to set up your gun. So I really like that. It protects the barrel from being pressed on by, you know, terrain if I'm shooting off of a barricade or something like that, or a rock. Sometimes people's barrels unintentionally touch, so that protects the barrel there. It also extends my Arasaka rail, the pick rail, out further, so I have more variability in how I can set up my tripod or my bipod. So inside of here, it's the stock LMT MWS Piston BCG. I have the American Defense branded Radian Raptor up here. These rail covers are from Slate Black Industries, usually the olive drab. Up here, our optics stack. This is the Area 419 cantilever rail, or cantilever mount, sorry, it's 36 millimeter, 20 MOA built into it. And inside of that, I have the ZC210s, the zero compromise 2-to-10 optic. The reticle I have specifically in here is the HTR, so when you're seeing the trigger cam footage of us shooting this, that's what reticle you're seeing. There's also the DMR, which is more of like a Christmas tree. It's actually like a triangle shaped reticle, and then there's the Predator, I believe, which is like a BDC. And then up here, we've got the Area 419 RMR mount, and then this is an RCR with 100 Concepts RCR cap. Going out to the front, like I mentioned, we have an Arasaka Picatinny rail. Big reason, some people have asked me why I do Picatinny over ARCA. It's not always the case that I do Picatinny over ARCA. I just do it on guns where I'm going to have to C-clamp that gun, because the Picatinny allows me the benefits of doing things I would do with an adjustable bipod or tripod position, but it's a little bit easier to get my hand around. And the other reason I love Picatinny is because I can don and doff accessories when I'm in a configuration like this a little bit easier. Like in this case, I have the Driven Arms Co. shortstop, the Picatinny model, so I can pop that on. If I'm going to go into a DMR configuration, I can pop that off and get it out of the way. Up in the front, we have the LMT Ion 30. We've already done the video on the Ion K, so this is its big brother. Underneath, I have an LMT muzzle brake. So if you see that video, and then you look at this video and you wonder why the back of this looks so different, it's because we don't have that B&T Surefire adapter, so we cut off that maybe 1.5 inches or so of length, and it cuts down on the weight quite a bit as well. So that's the optic setup. If you have questions on it or anything, ask them in the chat or in the comments or on Instagram, whatever, and we'll probably get back to you and talk to you about that. So yeah, when we're talking about implementing a large frame gas gun in an assault role, or honestly any role. The next video that we're doing is more of like the DMR aspect. One thing you're just going to find is that you don't use the large frame gas gun because there are any like operator benefits to it. It's not easier to drive. It's not easier to aim. It challenges your fundamentals more. And when you're talking about 308 versus like a 77 grain 5.56, as far as holds go, it's not a dramatic difference. They are sort of similar, and we'll do a good job showing that, on the actual ABQ profile. But the reason that you use a large frame gasser is because of kinetic energy on target. That's the reason that you'd pick this up and you'd use it. And so I really think that a lot of the fundamentals that I already practice in dry fire with SPR type gun, a 14 to an 18-inch 5.56 gun, that's going to translate to this. A lot of the recoil management stuff that I do on a small frame gas gun, that's going to translate to this, or a bolt gun, that's going to translate to this, or even pistol work, like working on my vision for transitions, all that's going to transfer. But the thing that's not going to transfer is that recoil management. That is the last fundamental, or I guess all follow through is part of the last fundamental, which is follow through. But that recoil management piece is the piece that you can really only train on this gun. And in the world of gas guns, this is going to challenge you the most. So just remember that if you have one of these and you're choosing one of these and you want to put it in something like an assaulter role, you can practice a lot of the fundamentals of what you'll need to run this well for cheaper on a small frame. However, if you are not picking up the gun and practicing broad transitions or triple taps, double taps, whatever, whether it's from a bipod on a 400-yard target or standing up shooting a bill, at 10 yards or 20 yards, you're going to suck. Mm-hmm. It's gonna kick your butt. But if you are, thinking holistically in how you are training for this and, working in a plan that accounts for the cost of the ammo and the fact that like maybe some ranges won't let you shoot their steel at a certain distance with that gun, this can be effective in an assault mm-hmm. role, I think, and you get the benefit of that extra kinetic energy on target.
Yeah, if somebody was to offer me the opportunity to run either a large frame or a small frame as like an assaulter setup, and they said, hey, don't think about the money, which one would you choose? I would err on the side of a large frame. Now, obviously, I don't live in that world, and money is absolutely an issue. And so everything about this is more expensive. To get a quality large frame, you're spending more than a quality small frame. Also, the parts compatibility. So with like the large frames, you've got basically two different, what would they be called? Like specs.
Yeah. Between like DPMS high, DPMS low,
right.
SR25.
Yeah, so you can't just like take all these parts and put them together. They can be a little bit more finicky. And then obviously ammo is a factor. But like I said, if ammo was not, or if money was not a factor, I would choose the large frame just to have that extra kinetic energy and energy on target. And this is coming from very limited experience. So please take what I'm saying with a grain of salt and understand where I'm coming from with this. But I'm coming from an area of shooting animals. Now I've shot plenty of deer with 5.56, but I have to be very selective about my shot as well as my ammo. Running something like a large frame, 308, 6.5 Creedmoor, that kind of stuff. Since you do have so much more energy on target, you don't have to be as selective about the particular bullet type that you're shooting. And these larger rounds also handle brush and that kind of stuff much better. So I have shown it on a video before. It was my Southeast Fighting Rifle video. I was running through like a trench or a creek, and any sort of little twig or root was causing those rounds to tumble. Anything like a 308, 6.5 Creedmoor, those larger calibers are going to handle that kind of stuff much better. And for most of us in the U.S., we're fighting outside around vegetation and whatnot. So having that larger caliber, I think, is going to be a smart play, again, if money's not a huge issue. And to back some of that up, you can look at like what they were running in, say, Vietnam, both the World Wars, and then even like Rhodesia, they're running the FALs, which is shooting, it was 7.62 by 51, right? Mm-hmm. 308. Yeah, so they're running those larger calibers because it does handle the vegetation, that kind of stuff, much better. Obviously, you've got to decide, is the extra weight worth it to you? The ammo's heavier, the magazines are bigger. I don't know what the the trade-off is there to a mathematical standpoint, but you're going to carry less of these large magazines, less rounds than you would with 5.56. So depending on if you're in a team setting or an individual, that could also come into play as well.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like the note to end on is if you guys pay attention to the gun sphere at all, all the drama around the M7 and reducing the fighting load of the American soldier, increasing the weight, forcing everyone to use a suppressor and a heavy optic, and how that might not be like a one size fits all. And additionally, I mean, we have an LMT in front of us, so it's worth it to mention that like at the time of this filming, I think the MRGGA contract was announced like 2 days ago or something like that. And that is a 14.5-inch 6.5 Creedmoor LMT. And so it just kind of goes to show you that like all these things are opinions, they're contextualized, they're MET-TC dependent. But there is a valid role for a large frame gasser in an assault role. SOCOM has seen fit to affirm that. But also there are reasonable counter arguments for it as well. And so those are decisions that you kind of have to make for yourself. But regardless of whether you choose to do it or not, those fundamentals are going to come and bite you in the butt if you're not working on whether you choose small frame or large frame. So you can be poor and strong with a large frame, or you can be a little less poor and weak with a small frame. But if your fundamentals are bad, you're just going to be bad. So
yeah.
So what you're looking at is kind of the heart and soul of the rifle that we're using here. The LMT MWS Piston version, it uses the same receivers as the other MWS options out there. But you'll notice that we have a piston gas block instead of your normal DI gas block, op rod instead of a gas tube, and then your BCG is completely different. We have a tappet plate here instead of, or a strike plate, there's different names for it, instead of a gas key. Additionally, in these bolt carrier groups, they're going to have humps in the back to prevent carrier tilt, which often happens when the op rod runs into the strike plate. But other than that, it's going to have the same quality as a regular LMT MWS. The three things that we kind of want to show / prove when we're out here or communicate is that the MWS piston barrel weighs less than the MWS DI standard profile barrels. I'm going to throw a bunch of boring words and numbers at you, but just want to kind of highlight this. We'll have some captions here to help you, but for the 16-inch barrels, LMT offers a chrome line 7.62 NATO standard spec barrel. That's going to be 3.46 pounds. They're going to have a lightweight chrome line 7.62 NATO barrel that's 2.778 pounds. They're going to have a lightweight stainless steel 7.62 NATO barrel that's 2.764 pounds. Those last two barrels are the only ones that are lighter than the piston barrel. They're going to have a stainless steel 7.62 NATO standard profile barrel that's 3.77 pounds. And then finally, the one that we're looking at is the lightweight chrome lined 7.62 NATO piston barrel, which is 3.04 pounds. So it's coming in just like about a quarter pound heavier than the other two lightweight profile DI barrels, but those are not the common barrels that you see on MWSs out there. They're going to have the standard profile barrels, and so those are actually going to be heavier than the piston. So this kind of dispels the myth that a piston gun is always going to be heavier than its DI counterparts. Yeah, I think that's it.
All right, cool. Well, that's all I have for you. I appreciate you watching. I'll catch you on the next one.
Cool.